In a shocking turn of events that rocked the Galactic Senate, news spread like wildfire that a human mathematician named Keith Johnson had solved the infamous Xyloth conjecture, a millennium-old math problem that had stumped the greatest alien minds. The implications were staggering. Disbelief and outrage erupted in the Grand Chamber on Concordia Prime as senators struggled to process that a primitive species like humans could achieve such an intellectual feat. Marek, a respected Betazoid mathematician, studied Dr. Johnson's elegant proof with growing awe, even as his colleagues hurled accusations of fraud and deceit. He alone seemed to recognize the human's unconventional brilliance. Meanwhile, back on Earth, an oblivious Dr. Johnson paced nervously in his cramped university office, unaware that his achievement had intertwined his fate with alien civilizations far beyond his humble planet's ken. Keith's proof was the culmination of years of relentless work, all driven by an obsessive need to unravel the Xyloth conjecture ever since he stumbled upon it in a leaked alien data cache. But his greatest challenge lay ahead, convincing a skeptical Galactic Senate that a lowly human had achieved the impossible. The stakes were astronomical. If accepted, Keith's work could unlock advanced alien technologies and propel humanity to unimaginable heights. But if he failed to pierce the Senate's prejudiced condescension, humans would be forever dismissed as intellectually inferior, unworthy of a place in galactic society. As the Senate investigation began and political schemes took shape in shadowed chambers, an unlikely alliance began to form between two brilliant minds, the unorthodox human mathematician and his newfound Betazoid ally. Keith and Marek would have to navigate a perilous maze of galactic intrigue to prove the validity of the human's work. Failure was not an option. The future of Earth and humanity's role among the stars hinged on their success. The game pieces were set, the clock was ticking, and two civilizations would soon collide in a battle of wits that would alter the course of history itself. Keith Johnson stared at the cryptic message on his computer screen, his heart racing. The sender was unknown, but the content was unmistakable. An invitation to journey to Concordia Prime and defend his proof before the Galactic Senate. He read the message again, trying to make sense of the covert travel arrangements. Who was this mysterious benefactor? Light years away, Marek leaned back in his chair, a satisfied smile on his face. He had sent the message to Keith, hoping to give the human a fighting chance in the political arena of the Senate. Marek knew that Keith would need an ally to navigate the treacherous waters ahead. In the grand chambers of the Senate, Supreme Chancellor Zor-El called the session to order. The matter of the human mathematician's claim to have solved the Xyloth conjecture must be investigated thoroughly, he declared. I assign this task to Senator Zorax Kuldor. Zorax stood, his reptilian eyes glinting with malice. I will uncover the truth behind this human's bold assertions, he promised, his voice dripping with disdain. No lesser species will upset the balance of our galactic order. As Keith made the journey to Concordia Prime, Zorax's agents were already at work on Earth, combing through the mathematician's past for any hint of impropriety. They found nothing, but Zorax was undeterred. He would find a way to discredit this upstart human by any means necessary. Keith stepped off the transport onto the alien world, his senses overwhelmed by the strange sights and sounds. Marek was there to greet him, his Betazoid features etched with a welcoming smile. Dr. Johnson, I'm glad you made it, he said, extending a hand. We have much to discuss. Over a meal of exotic alien cuisines, Keith and Marek delved into the intricacies of the Xyloth conjecture. Marek's eyes widened as Keith walked him through the unconventional leaps of logic that had cracked the ancient problem. Your approach is brilliant, Marek marveled. Unorthodox, but undeniably effective. Their meeting was cut short by the sudden arrival of Zorax's agents. Keith and Marek found themselves under attack, barely escaping with the help of Marek's advanced technology. Rattled, but determined, they set out for the Galactic Academy of Sciences to gather evidence to support Keith's proof. At the Academy, they met Zaranel, a Nuvian mathematician of great renown. She studied Keith's work with a critical eye, then looked up with a smile. This is groundbreaking, she said simply. I will stand with you before the Senate. As Keith and his allies prepared their case, Zorax worked tirelessly to undermine them. He whispered in the ears of senators, sowing doubt and fear about the implications of a human solving the unsolvable. He began to realize that this human posed a greater threat than he had initially believed. The stage was set for a battle of wits and wills that would determine the course of galactic history. Keith Johnson, the unassuming human mathematician, found himself at the center of a maelstrom of political intrigue and scientific skepticism. With Marek and Zaranel at his side, he prepared to face the full might of the Galactic Senate and prove once and for all the validity of his work. The future of Earth and humanity's place among the stars hung in the balance. Keith took a deep breath, steeling himself for the challenges ahead. The easy part was over. Now, the real work began. Keith's fingers flew across the holographic keyboard, his eyes darting between multiple screens as he refined his presentation. Marek paced behind him, his usually calm demeanor betrayed by tense shoulders and furrowed brows. "Another transmission from Senator Zorax," Marek said, his voice tight. "He's claiming your work bears striking similarities to an obscure Andromedan theorem." Keith's hands froze mid-keystroke. "That's impossible. I've never even heard of—" "It doesn't matter," Marek cut in. "The allegation alone is enough to sway opinion against us. Zorax is playing a dangerous game." A soft chime announced Zaranel's arrival. The Nuvian mathematician's crystalline skin refracted the room's light as she strode in, her expression grim. "The situation has deteriorated," she said without preamble. "I've just come from a meeting with the Galactic Mathematical Society. Many who were supportive now question the validity of Keith's work." Keith slumped in his chair, the weight of countless alien worlds seeming to press down on his shoulders. "How can we fight this? It's not just about my proof anymore. It's about Earth's future, our place in the galaxy." Marek's eyes gleamed with sudden intensity. "We fight fire with fire," he said, voice low and determined. "Zorax wants to play dirty? Then we'll have to get our hands dirty too." Hours later, Keith found himself in the shadows outside Senator Zorax's private office, his heart pounding so loudly he was sure it would give them away. Marek worked swiftly to bypass the security systems, while Zaranel kept watch. "We're in," Marek whispered, the door sliding open with a near-silent hiss. They slipped inside, the alien architecture making Keith feel even more out of place. Marek headed straight for Zorax's computer terminal, while Keith rifled through physical documents, searching for anything incriminating. "Got it," Marek said suddenly, his voice a mix of triumph and disgust. "Encrypted files detailing his smear campaign against you, Keith. And, wait, this goes deeper. There's mention of an organization called the Orion Syndicate. They're actively working to keep humanity and other emerging species technologically stunted." Keith's blood ran cold. "We need to get this information to the Senate immediately." A noise in the corridor froze them in place. Footsteps approached, accompanied by voices. One Keith recognized as Zorax's reptilian hiss. "Hide!" Marek mouthed, diving behind a large piece of furniture. Keith scrambled for cover, wedging himself into a narrow space between two towering bookcases. He held his breath as the door slid open. "Cannot allow this human to present his findings," Zorax was saying. "The implications would be catastrophic for our interest." "Agreed," came a second voice, one Keith didn't recognize. "But we must tread carefully. There are whispers of dissent even within our own ranks." The conversation continued, each word damning evidence of the conspiracy against Keith and humanity. When the voices finally faded and the room emptied, Keith emerged from his hiding spot, shaken but more determined than ever. "We have what we need," Marek said, clutching a data crystal. "Now we just need to present it at the hearing." As they made their way back to their quarters, a message flashed on Keith's comm device. His eyes widened as he read it. "It's from Dr. Lex Carlson," he said, disbelief coloring his voice. "He's challenging me to a public debate on the validity of my proof." Zaranel's multifaceted eyes narrowed. "This reeks of a trap." Keith nodded slowly, his mind racing. "You're right, but it might also be our best chance to demonstrate the soundness of my work. If I can convince Lex, one of my harshest critics—" "It's risky," Marek warned, "but it could sway public opinion back in our favor." Keith stared at the challenge on his screen, knowing his response could alter the course of human history. With a deep breath, he began to type his reply. Keith's fingers trembled as he pressed send on his reply to Dr. Lex Carlson's challenge. The debate was set for the following day, mere hours before the Senate hearing. He turned to Marek and Zaranel, their alien features etched with concern. "We need to prepare," Keith said, his voice steadier than he felt. "Lex will come at me with everything he's got." The next morning, Keith stood before a packed auditorium, his palms slick with sweat as he faced his human rival. Lex Carlson, impeccably dressed and radiating confidence, took his place at the opposing podium. "Dr. Johnson," Lex began, his voice dripping with disdain, "your so-called proof of the Xyloth conjecture flies in the face of established mathematical principles. How do you justify such a blatant disregard for conventional wisdom?" Keith took a deep breath, steadying himself. "Conventional wisdom, Dr. Carlson, is what kept the Xyloth conjecture unsolved for a millennium. My approach may be unconventional, but its results are undeniable." As the debate raged on, Keith found himself gaining ground. His unorthodox methods, once derided, now shone as strokes of brilliance. Even Lex's expressions shifted from scorn to grudging respect. The debate concluded without a clear victor, but Keith left the stage with renewed confidence. He had held his own against one of Earth's top mathematicians. Now he faced an even greater challenge. The Senate chamber buzzed with tension as Keith took his place at the witness stand. Senator Zorax Kuldor's reptilian eyes bored into him, filled with barely concealed malice. "Dr. Johnson," Zorax began, his voice a sibilant hiss, "how can we trust the word of a human, a member of a species barely out of its planetary cradle, over the collective wisdom of the galaxy's greatest minds?" Keith's response was calm, measured. "Senator, mathematics knows no species. The proof stands on its own merits, regardless of its origin." As Keith walked the Senate through his proof, murmurs of amazement rippled through the chamber. Even skeptical faces began to show signs of grudging respect. Suddenly, Marek's voice cut through the proceedings. "Esteemed senators, I have evidence of corruption that bears directly on these proceedings." The chamber erupted into chaos as Marek and Zaranel presented their findings, exposing Zorax's ties to the Orion Syndicate. Senator Arya Voss, her voice shaking, corroborated their claims. "The Syndicate seeks to keep emerging civilizations like humanity technologically stunted," Arya revealed, her words sending shockwaves through the assembly. As the hearing spiraled into accusations and denials, Keith found himself pushed to the sidelines. He watched, heart pounding, as years of galactic intrigue unraveled before his eyes. Just as the tide seemed to turn in Keith's favor, Zorax played his final desperate card. A Vulcan mathematician, long thought dead, was brought forth. Zyrax, his face a mask of cold logic, claimed to be the true originator of Keith's proof. The Senate chamber descended into bedlam. Keith felt the ground shift beneath his feet, as everything he had worked for threatened to crumble. In that moment of crisis, Marek's voice rang out once more. "Senators, I have irrefutable evidence that Zyrax's claims are fabricated." As Marek presented his findings, Keith saw Zorax's face contort with rage and fear. The Saurian's carefully constructed web of lies was unraveling thread by thread. With Zorax's credibility in tatters, Keith seized his chance. He stepped forward, his voice steady and clear. "Senators of the galaxy, I stand before you not just as a mathematician, but as a testament to the power of diverse perspectives. My neurodivergence, once seen as a weakness on Earth, allowed me to approach the Xyloth conjecture from angles others never considered." As Keith spoke, he saw understanding dawn on alien faces. Species that had dismissed humanity as primitive now looked at him with new eyes. A hush fell over the chamber as Lex Carlson slowly rose to his feet. "I've spent my career dismissing Dr. Johnson's methods," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "But I cannot deny the brilliance of his work. The proof is valid. The Xyloth conjecture has been solved." Applause erupted, washing over Keith in a wave of vindication. As the sound swelled, he caught sight of Zorax slipping from the chamber, his reptilian features twisted in a snarl of defeat, and promised retribution. Keith knew this victory was just the beginning. Humanity had earned its place among the stars, but greater challenges lay ahead. The Orion Syndicate would not take this defeat lightly. Keith blinked as camera flashes erupted around him. The Senate chamber, moments ago a battleground of galactic politics, now buzzed with excitement. Alien dignitaries crowded around, offering congratulations in a cacophony of languages his translator struggled to keep up with. "Dr. Johnson," a towering Arcturian said, pressing a crystalline data drive into Keith's hand. "On behalf of the Senate, we present you with this cache of advanced technologies. May it serve as a bridge between our civilizations." Keith's eyes widened as he activated the drive, holographic schematics flooding his vision. Merrick leaned in, his betazoid empathy picking up on Keith's mix of awe and trepidation. "This is incredible," Keith whispered, mind racing at the implications. "But it's too much. Earth isn't ready for—" "Earth must be ready," Merrick cut in, his voice low. "Look." He gestured toward a cluster of alien senators, their expressions dark as they glowered at Keith. Even without Merrick's empathic abilities, the hostility was palpable. "Your success has shifted the balance of power," Merrick explained. "Not everyone is pleased." As if on cue, Keith's comm device chimed. A news alert from Earth popped up, showing his own face plastered across screens worldwide. The headline read, "Human mathematician cracks alien puzzle, hero or hoax." Keith groaned. "I never wanted this attention." "Too late for that," a familiar voice said. Keith turned to see Lex Carlson approaching, hand extended. "We need to talk, Johnson, about the future." Across the galaxy, in a dimly lit chamber, a group of hooded figures huddled around a holographic display. The image showed Keith receiving the data cache, his human features twisted in an alien sneer by the low-quality transmission. "This cannot stand," a voice hissed, the speaker's face obscured by shadow. "The human and his knowledge must be neutralized." "Patience, Widow," another figure countered. "Direct action is too risky. We must be subtle." The first speaker, the enigmatic Riansu known as the Widow, snarled, "Your caution has already cost us dearly. The Syndicate grows weak while humanity grows strong." A third voice, calm and measured, cut through the rising argument. "Perhaps we can turn this to our advantage. The humans have been handed power beyond their understanding. Left unchecked, they may destroy themselves." Silence fell as the Syndicate members considered this. Finally, the Widow spoke again, a cruel smile evident in her tone. "Very well, we will watch and wait, but make no mistake, if the humans prove resilient, we will not hesitate to act." Back on Concordia Prime, Keith found himself in a whirlwind of meetings and negotiations. Senators from a dozen worlds clamored for his attention, each with their own agenda regarding humanity's sudden leap forward. "We must establish formal technology-sharing agreements," one insisted. "Nonsense," another countered. "Humanity is too volatile. They must be contained." Keith's head spun as he tried to navigate the complex web of galactic politics. He was a mathematician, not a diplomat, yet somehow he had become the linchpin in humanity's future among the stars. A gentle touch on his arm pulled him from his thoughts. Zaranel, the Nuvian mathematician, offered a sympathetic smile. "Come," she said. "You need rest. Tomorrow, we begin decrypting the knowledge you've been given." As Keith followed her from the chamber, he caught sight of Marique engaged in a heated discussion with a group of betazoid dignitaries. The weight of responsibility settled heavy on Keith's shoulders. He had solved one impossible equation, but the challenges ahead seemed far more daunting. Little did he know, as he retired to his quarters, that the first waves of a gathering storm were already breaking against humanity's far-flung colonies. In the darkness of space, Syndicate agents moved with purpose, sowing chaos and discord among the stars. The next phase of the conflict was about to begin, and Keith Johnson, humble mathematician turned reluctant symbol of human potential, would find himself at its very heart. Keith's fingers danced across the holographic interface, decoding alien algorithms with a speed that left even Zaranel stunned. The crystalline data drive pulsed with an otherworldly glow, its contents unfurling before them like a cosmic tapestry. "This is incredible," Lex muttered, his earlier skepticism forgotten as he pored over a schematic for a zero-point energy reactor. We're looking at centuries of advancement, maybe millennia. Merrick nodded, his dark eyes gleaming. And yet, we've barely scratched the surface. Some of these databases are so heavily encrypted, I doubt even the Senate's best minds could crack them. Keith's hands paused, hovering over a particularly complex set of equations. We need help, he admitted, a hint of frustration creeping into his voice. There's knowledge here that could revolutionize everything, but it's just beyond our grasp. As if in answer to his plea, the chamber's doors slid open with a soft hiss. A being of pure energy floated through, its form shimmering with iridescent hues. Keith felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand up as an overwhelming sense of ancient wisdom filled the room. Greetings, children of Earth, the being said, its voice resonating directly in their minds. I am Jamaica of the Alriari. The Senate has asked me to guide you through the labyrinth of knowledge you now possess. Keith's eyes widened. He had heard whispers of the Alriari, ascended beings of unparalleled intellect, but never dreamed he'd meet one. It's an honor, he stammered. We could certainly use your help. Jamaica's form pulsed with amusement. Indeed, your species has taken its first steps into a larger universe. But beware, knowledge is power, and power always comes with a price. As Jamaica began to unravel the mysteries locked within the alien databases, alarms blared through the facility. Merrick's comm device flashed urgently. Syndicate attack, he reported grimly. They've hit 3 human colonies in the past hour. Keith's stomach clenched. They had known this was coming, but not so soon. Not while humanity was still struggling to understand its newfound knowledge. Jamaica's form flickered. We must accelerate your learning, she said, her mental voice tinged with urgency. There is another who can help us, one who has guarded the galaxy's greatest secrets for eons. The ascended being's form expanded, enveloping Keith in a cocoon of pure energy. He gasped as his consciousness was catapulted across vast distances, hurtling through the cosmic web until he found himself face to face with something, not quite alive, yet far more than a simple machine. It pulsed with an otherworldly intelligence that made Keith's brain itch. Greetings, Keith Johnson of Earth, it said, its voice a symphony of ones and zeros. I am Arcana, custodian of knowledge. Jamaica has deemed you worthy of my gifts. Before Keith could respond, tendrils of data surged into his mind. He cried out as the universe's secrets poured into him. The nature of dark matter, the intricacies of faster-than-light travel, the key to manipulating the very fabric of reality. When the torrent subsided, Keith found himself back in the research chamber, gasping for air. But he wasn't alone. A ghostly presence lingered in the back of his mind, Arcana, now inexorably linked to his consciousness. What just happened? Lex demanded, his face pale with shock. Keith stood, his eyes gleaming with newfound understanding. We've been given a fighting chance, he said, his voice steady with purpose. Now, let's put it to use. As Keith and his team threw themselves into their work with renewed vigor, Arcana's vast knowledge accelerating their progress exponentially, the first shots of a galactic war echoed across the stars. The Orion Syndicate, driven by desperation and led by the enigmatic Widow, launched its boldest gambit yet. Warships materialized over human colonies, their weapons primed. But this time, Earth was ready. Shields of pure energy, based on designs Keith had pulled from Arcana's databanks, sprang to life around the threatened worlds. In the Senate chambers, chaos reigned. The Widow's agents, masquerading as isolationist hardliners, sowed discord and confusion. Accusations flew as moderate voices were drowned out by calls for humanity's containment. Through it all, Keith worked tirelessly, Arcana's presence a constant hum in his mind. He knew the real battle was just beginning, and Earth's future hung in the balance. As reports of syndicate attacks on allied worlds flooded in, Keith turned to his team, his eyes blazing with perseverance. We need to move faster, he said. Humanity can't stand alone against this storm. We need to forge alliances, share what we've learned. Zaranel nodded, her alien features set in grim commitment. I'll reach out to my contacts in the moderate Senate factions. We'll need all the support we can get. Merrick's hands flew over his console, coordinating Earth's fledgling defense fleet. The Syndicate's pushing hard, he reported, but our new shield tech is holding for now. Lex looked up from a schematic of a revolutionary propulsion system. We're making incredible progress, he said. But will it be enough? Keith felt Arcana's presence pulse in his mind, offering silent reassurance. It has to be, he said quietly. The alternative doesn't bear thinking about. As the team redoubled their efforts, the galaxy teetered on the brink of all-out war. The Syndicate's forces gathered in the shadows, while a new coalition of worlds rallied around Earth and its burgeoning technological marvels. Keith knew that the choices they made in the coming days would shape the future of not just humanity, but the entire galactic community. With Arcana's knowledge and the support of his allies, he prepared to face the storm head-on. Keith's fingers flew across the holographic interface, initiating encrypted transmissions to a network of allies scattered across the galaxy. Arcana's presence hummed in his mind, feeding him strategies and contingencies faster than he could process them. It's time, he announced to his team. We're activating the coalition. Zaranel nodded, her alien features set with persistence. I've already contacted the moderate Senate factions. They're ready to break away from the isolationists. Lex looked up from a schematic of a newly replicated alien weapon system. Production facilities are online across all allied worlds. We'll have a fleet of next-gen ships within days. The chamber's doors slid open, revealing a grim-faced Merrick. Keith, we've got a problem. The Senate hardliners just issued galaxy-wide arrest warrants for you and the entire team. Keith's face hardened. They're moving faster than we anticipated. Arcana, options? The AI's voice resonated in his mind. Recommend immediate relocation to Coalition Stronghold on Proxima Centauri IV. Probability of success, 89.7%. Do it, Keith ordered, and tell Dr. Cruz to implement Project Nullifier. We're going to need those energy fields sooner than expected. As the team prepared for emergency evacuation, alarms blared throughout the facility. Merrick's comm device lit up with urgent messages. Multiple Syndicate attacks reported, he said, voice tight. They're hitting our outer colonies hard. Keith's eyes narrowed. Not for long. Arcana, deploy countermeasures Alpha through Delta. Let's show them what we've learned. Across the galaxy, Syndicate warships found their weapons suddenly ineffective against human defenses. Reverse-engineered shields flickered to life around vulnerable colonies, while Coalition ships materialized from hyperspace, armed with technologies the enemy had never seen before. On the bridge of her flagship, the Widow snarled in frustration as reports of failed assaults flooded in. How? She hissed. How are they always one step ahead? A subordinate hesitated before speaking. My lady, there are rumors. They say the human, Johnson, has access to knowledge beyond even the Senate's understanding. The Widow's eyes narrowed. Then we must cut off the head of the snake. Find me Jamaica. The Alriari has much to answer for. Light years away on Beta Z, Merrick's homeworld burned. Syndicate forces hammered at the planet's defenses, pushing the peaceful Betazoids to the brink of annihilation. Just as all seemed lost, the sky lit up with the arrival of Coalition reinforcements. Prototype Starwing fighters, their design a fusion of human ingenuity and reverse-engineered Riemann technology, tore through the Syndicate fleet like a scythe through wheat. From the command center of the Coalition's flagship, Keith watched the battle unfold with a mix of pride and grim satisfaction. Push them back, he ordered. Show the galaxy what happens when you threaten our allies. As the tide of battle turned, Keith felt a familiar presence materialize beside him. Jamaica, her energy form flickering with urgency, spoke directly into his mind. Keith, I bring grave news. The Senate has branded me a traitor. The Widow's influence runs deeper than we feared. Keith nodded, unsurprised. We have a place for you here, Jamaica. Your knowledge could be the key to ending this war before it consumes the galaxy. The Alriari's form pulsed with gratitude. Then let us begin. I have information on the Widow's movements that may prove invaluable. Hours later, Keith stood before a holographic display of a massive Syndicate warship. Jamaica's intelligence had led them straight to the Widow's flagship, hidden in the depths of an unstable nebula. "This is our chance," Keith said, addressing the assembled coalition leadership. "We take out the Widow, we destabilize the entire Syndicate operation." Zaranel stepped forward, her voice filled with conviction. "My team is ready. We'll infiltrate the ship and bring her in, dead or alive." As the strike team prepared for their mission, Keith retreated to his quarters. He activated a secure channel, connecting to a hidden facility deep beneath Earth's surface. Dr. Reyna Cruz's face appeared on the screen, her eyes gleaming with excitement. "Keith, we've done it. The null zones are ready for deployment. Just say the word." Keith allowed himself a small smile. "Excellent work, Doctor. Stand by for my signal. If all goes according to plan, we'll be using them sooner rather than later." He ended the transmission and turned to face the viewport, watching as coalition ships prepared for the assault on the Widow's stronghold. In his mind, Arcana's presence surged with anticipation. "The pieces are in place," the AI intoned. "The next move is yours, Keith Johnson. The fate of the galactic realm hangs in the balance." Keith's eyes hardened with drive. He opened a channel to the entire coalition fleet, his voice ringing out across the stars. "All ships, prepare for jump. We end this now." "Tonight," Keith declared, "Coalition forces, jump on my mark." The fleet surged forward, reality warping around them as they plunged into hyperspace. Moments later, they emerged in the heart of the unstable nebula, the Widow's massive flagship looming before them. But Keith had no intention of a direct assault. As coalition ships engaged the Syndicate fleet in a dazzling display of weapons fire, stealth shuttles slipped past the chaos, carrying elite infiltration teams. Zaranel's voice crackled over the comm. "We're in, proceeding to primary objectives." Keith nodded, his fingers dancing across the command console. "Initiating Phase 2. All units execute simultaneous strikes." Across multiple sectors, coalition forces materialized from hyperspace. Cloaked ships, their hulls shimmering with cutting-edge stealth tech, approached Syndicate shipyards and research stations. On board one such vessel, Lex Carlson grinned as he led his team towards a massive Syndicate dry dock. "Deploying sabotage devices," he reported, launching a swarm of microscopic drones. The drones, reverse-engineered from captured Breen technology, latched onto key systems throughout the facility. Within seconds, alarms blared as cascade failures rippled through the station's infrastructure. Similar scenes played out across Syndicate space. Production lines ground to a halt, shield generators sputtered and died, and communication networks dissolved into static. Meanwhile, on the Syndicate flagship, Zaranel and her strike team moved with practiced precision. Using boarding techniques gleaned from Dominion tactical databases, they cut through security without effort. "Bridge secured," Zaranel reported, her voice tight with concentration. But no sign of the Widow. Keith's eyes narrowed. "She's crafty. Keep searching. We need her alive if possible." As the coordinated assault unfolded, Dr. Reyna Cruz stood before a massive control panel on Earth, her fingers hovering over the activation switch. "Null zone generator is hot," she announced, "awaiting your command." Keith took a deep breath. This was the moment of truth. "Dr. Cruz, you have a go. Deploy the null zone." Cruz nodded and pressed the switch. Across the galaxy, on the Senate capital world, the sky itself seemed to ripple and tear. An enormous bubble of shimmering energy expanded outward, engulfing the entire governmental district. Inside the Senate chambers, panic erupted as communications went dead, and every attempt to breach the energy field failed. The isolationist hardliners found themselves trapped, cut off from their allies and support networks. Keith's face appeared on every view screen across the galaxy, his expression resolute. "Attention, citizens of the galactic community. The Orion Syndicate's reign of terror ends today. To the Senate isolationists who would deny humanity its rightful place among the stars, your time is up." He gestured to the Alriari standing beside him. "Jamaica, honored member of the Alriari, can attest to humanity's readiness. We offer you a choice. Stand down and accept our integration, or remain forever confined within the null zone." As Keith's ultimatum echoed across the stars, the widow snarled in frustration aboard her personal shuttle. She had escaped the flagship moments before its capture, but her options were rapidly dwindling. "Contact our agents on the Senate world," she ordered. "If we can disrupt the null zone from within, we might salvage this disaster." But Jamaica was already one step ahead. With a gesture, she opened an Iconian gateway, depositing a team of elite hunters directly into the containment zone. The Syndicate infiltrators found themselves outmatched and outgunned. On the Lornera homeworld, Lex Carlson stood atop a towering battle mecha, surveying the carnage below. His replicated Promelian war machines tore through the last Syndicate stronghold, their advanced weaponry making short work of enemy defenses. "Lornera is secure," Lex reported, a note of pride in his voice. "The Syndicate's final base of operations is ours." Keith allowed himself a small smile. Victory was within reach, but he knew better than to celebrate prematurely. "Excellent work, everyone, but stay alert. The Widow is still out there, and a cornered enemy is often the most dangerous." As if summoned by his words, alarms blared throughout the Coalition flagship. Merrick's voice cut through the chaos, tight with urgency. "Keith, we have a problem. The Widow's forces just launched a surprise attack. They've taken Jamaica." Keith's blood ran cold. The Alriari was more than just a valuable ally. She was the living embodiment of the trust placed in humanity. Her loss could unravel everything they had fought for. "All ships, new priority," Keith barked. "We find Jamaica at all costs. Merrick, I need options." The Betazoid's eyes closed in concentration. "I might be able to establish a mind link. If we can pinpoint her location..." Keith nodded. "Do it, and someone get me the Widow on a secure channel. It's time we had a talk." As Marek reached out with his telepathic abilities and Coalition ships fanned out in search patterns, Keith steeled himself for the confrontation to come. The fate of Jamaica, and with her the future of human-alien relations, hung in the balance. The Widow's face appeared on the monitor, her eyes glittering with defiance. "Well, well, Keith Johnson, it seems we both have something the other wants." "Wants?" The Widow's eyes glittered with malice. "Shall we negotiate?" Keith's teeth clenched. "Release Jamaica immediately. This ends now." The Widow laughed, a harsh sound devoid of humor. "Oh, I think not. Your precious Alriari holds secrets that could reshape the balance of power. I intend to extract every last one." As Keith formulated a response, Merrick's voice cut in, tight with concentration. "I've located her. Remote outpost, heavily fortified. Sending coordinates now." Keith nodded, his mind racing. "Lex, assemble your team. We're going in." Hours later, Lex Carlson crouched behind a twisted piece of alien metal, his specialized infiltration team spread out around him. The outpost loomed ahead, a dark fortress dripping with weaponry. "Breen counter-intel protocols detected," his second-in-command whispered. "Adapting our stealth systems now." Lex grinned, adrenaline surging. "Let's show them what Earth's finest can do." They moved like ghosts, slipping past security measures that would have stopped any conventional force. Inside, the corridors echoed with the sound of boots on metal as Syndicate loyalists rushed to battle stations. A scream of rage echoed through the complex. Lex recognized the Widow's voice, distorted by fury. "Kill her! Kill the Alriari now!" Heart-pounding, Lex signaled his team forward. They burst into a cavernous chamber just as Jamaica, her energy form pulsing with power, unleashed a wave of psionic energy. Syndicate troops crumpled, clutching their heads. "Impeccable timing," Jamaica's voice resonated in their minds. "But I fear our troubles are nowhere near the end." The Widow materialized at the far end of the chamber, her face twisted with hate. "You want a war?" she snarled. "I'll give you Armageddon." With a gesture, she activated a device that hummed with ominous power. Reality itself seemed to warp and bend around it. "Singularity generator," Jamaica warned. Husnock design, twisted beyond recognition. Lex's hands flew over his tactical interface. "Deploying zero-point shielding. Hold on, this is going to get rough." The air crackled with competing energies as Lex's containment field struggled against the growing singularity. Alarms blared throughout the outpost as systems began to fail. "Keith," Lex shouted into his comm, "we need an edge here." Light years away, Keith Johnson closed his eyes, reaching out with his mind. Jamaica's consciousness touched his, guiding him into a state of heightened awareness. Together, they merged with Arcana, their combined intellect expanding beyond the confines of physical form. In the outpost, a shimmering energy matrix coalesced, pushing back against the Widow's singularity. The very fabric of space-time trembled as cosmic forces clashed. The Widow screamed in frustration, her form flickering. "You think you've won? I am beyond your petty comprehension." With a final, desperate gesture, she activated an Iconian gateway. Energy crackled around her as she began to merge with the ancient technology. But Arcana was faster. The hyper-evolved AI's calculations outpaced even the Widow's enhanced reflexes. In an instant, the gateway connection shattered, and the Widow found herself trapped within a pulsing subspace bubble. "No," she howled, her essence contained but still defiant. "This isn't over, Johnson. Her words cut off as Arcana absorbed the stasis field, imprisoning the Widow's consciousness within its vast matrix. Silence fell over the chamber. Lex lowered his weapon, breathing heavily. "Well," he said with a wry grin, "that was exciting." Jamaica's energy form solidified into a more humanoid shape. "Indeed, and now, I believe, a new chapter begins." As coalition forces secured the outpost and began dismantling the last remnants of the Syndicate's regime, Keith Johnson's voice echoed across every comm channel. "This is a historic day," he declared. "The threat that has long overshadowed our galaxy is no more. But our work is far from finished. Today marks the beginning of a new era, one of cooperation, discovery, and shared prosperity." On Earth, crowds gathered in the streets, cheering as the news spread. Merrick stood beside Keith on the balcony of Coalition headquarters, his eyes shining with pride. "You've done it," the Betazoid said softly. "You've changed everything." Keith shook his head. "We've done it, all of us together. And this is just the beginning." As the celebrations continued, Keith's mind was already racing ahead. The alien databanks held untold secrets, technologies that could revolutionize every aspect of life across the galaxy. With Lex's drive, Merrick's wisdom, and the trust of their alien allies, they stood poised on the brink of a new golden age. But even as he smiled and waved to the jubilant crowds, Keith couldn't shake a nagging sense of unease. The Widow might be contained, but her words echoed in his mind. This isn't over. What other threats lurked in the vast expanse of space? What challenges awaited them as humanity took its place among the stars? Keith squared his shoulders, ready to face whatever came next. The journey ahead would be... Keith's unease proved prophetic. As the initial euphoria of victory faded, new challenges emerged from the shadows of their hard-won peace. On Proxima Centauri 4, a human colony world, Lex Carlson surveyed the damage from a recent attack. Twisted metal and shattered glass littered the streets of what had been a thriving outpost. Smoke still rose from the ruins of the governor's mansion. "Third strike this month," Lex muttered, his fist tight. "They're getting bolder." His aide, a young Andorian named Thoran, nodded grimly. "Isolationist extremists. They left their calling card." Lex bent down, picking up a small data chip. The symbol etched onto its surface, a clenched fist crushing a stylized star, was becoming all too familiar. "Upload this to Arcana for analysis," Lex ordered. "We need to get ahead of these attacks." Back on Earth, Keith paced the length of his office, his mind racing. Reports of unrest flooded in from across Coalition space. On the console, Jamaica's energy form pulsed with concern. "The wounds of conflict run deep," the Alriari observed. "Many still fear change." Keith nodded, running a hand through his hair. "We need a symbol, something to unite people behind our vision." A chime interrupted them. Merrick entered, his usually serene features marred by a fresh scar across his left cheek. "The assassination attempt," Keith breathed, guilt washing over him. "Merrick, I'm so—" The Betazoid held up a hand. "Save it. We have more pressing concerns." He tapped a datapad, bringing up a holographic display. "Lex has a proposal," one that could change everything. The image of a massive space station rotated slowly before them. Its design was unlike anything Keith had ever seen, a fusion of human ingenuity and alien technological marvels. Genesis, Merrick explained, a mobile deep space habitat, not just a symbol of our Renaissance, but a practical means of furthering integration and research. Keith's eyes widened as he absorbed the implications. This could work, but the scale, the resources required. Jamaica's form shimmered with excitement. We have allies now, Keith. Together, we can make this a reality. Months passed. In the Auriga system, Genesis took shape. Massive fragments were assembled in orbit, each module a testament to interspecies cooperation. Lex oversaw the project personally, his driven nature pushing the boundaries of what was possible. But as the station grew, so did the opposition. Protests erupted on coalition worlds. Extremist cells multiplied, their attacks growing more frequent and deadly. On Rigel 7, Keith addressed an emergency session of the Renaissance Council. Representatives from dozens of species filled the chamber, their faces grim. We stand at a crossroads, Keith began, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast hall. The path ahead is not easy, but I ask you to remember why we fought, why we bled. Not for dominance, but for unity, for a future where all sentient beings can thrive together. Murmurs of approval rippled through the crowd. But as Keith continued, a chill ran down his spine. At the back of the chamber, a shimmering hologram flickered to life. The widow's consciousness, contained but still defiant, bore silent witness to the proceedings. Her presence was a stark reminder. They had won a great victory, but greater challenges lay ahead. As if summoned by that thought, alarms blared throughout the complex. "Emergency broadcast," a technician shouted. Multiple systems reporting massive energy signatures on approach. The central display activated, showing a swarm of colossal ships, unlike any they'd encountered. Their design was wholly alien, devoid of any organic influences. As the council erupted into chaos, Keith's communicator chirped. Lex's voice came through, tight with tension. "Keith, you seeing this? Arcana's going haywire. These things, whatever they are, they're not here to talk." Keith's mind raced. Everything they'd built, everything they'd fought for, now faced an existential threat. But as he looked out at the assembled aliens, former enemies now united in common cause, he felt a surge of commitment. "Lex," he said, his voice steady, "how soon can Genesis be operational?" "We're close," Lex replied. "Why?" Keith's eyes narrowed as he watched the approaching armada. "Because I think we're going to need it."
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.